Welcome to Currently Right Now, Wife, Mom, Me. I'm your host, Ariane Mayweather, talking about happy wife, happy life, or happy wife, shitty life. The modern woman, marriage versus traditional woman, traditional marriage, and all the things in between. So let's talk about marriage in itself. What is marriage? What is its purpose? And how does the traditional woman versus the modern woman fit into all this? And how does happy wife, happy life, and the alternative fit into that whole idea? So let's start with this. I am God-fearing. I'm a God-fearing woman. I am a Christian woman. I believe in God. I believe that God should be at the center of your marriage. Now, when I think about individuals who don't believe in God, who don't are not religious, then why do you all get married? Because essentially God ordained marriage, man, woman, and the idea of marriage to be fruitful. So let's look at the Bible and let's look and see what the Bible says about marriage and its idea. So when talking about marriage, biblical scriptures on marriage emphasize its divinely ordained status, highlighting its significance as a sacred covenant between a man and a woman, intended to be one flesh union. Marriage is presented as a reflection of God's relationship with his people and as a means for procreation, companionship, and mutual support. So, let's look at the first Bible scripture. Foundation of marriage, Genesis 2:24. Therefore a man shall leave his father, his mother, and hold fast to his wife, and they shall become one flesh. This verse establishes the principle of marriage as a union that unites two individuals into a single entity, transcending their individual families. Genesis 1:27 through 28. So God created mankind in his own image. In the image of God, he created them. Male and female, he created them. And God blessed them. And he said to them, be fruitful and multiply. Fill the earth, subdue it. These verses highlight the divine purpose for marriage, including procreation, expanding God's creation. Now, when you think of that and believing in God and being religious and being a Christian and wanting marriage, then as a woman, you understand your role. And if you don't, and you're new to this, you would then look to someone to show you, preferably a parent, your parents, your grandparents, aunts, uncles, cousins, other relatives, or people you trust that can have a positive influence on your life and on your marriage. So husband and wife roles and responsibilities. Ephesians 5:22 through 33. This passage outlines the responsibilities of both husbands and wives within the marriage. Wives are instructed to submit to their husbands, while husbands are called to love their wives sacrificially as Christ loved the church. So let's dive more into the whole submission thing and what is the role of a traditional wife and what she brings to the marriage. So the Bible addresses gender roles in a marriage primarily based on passages like Ephesians 5 and 1 Peter 3, which emphasize the husband's role as a head and leader and the wife's role as a submissive helper. Now, that word submissive, we're going to circle back to that. These verses are often interpreted to suggest a hierarchy within the marriage. The husband is the leader. So the husband submits to God. So in the order of God, husband, wife. Now, if we look at the book of Ephesians 5:22 through 24, this passage instructs wives to submit to their husbands as to the Lord, and states that the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church. This is often interpreted as establishing the structure within the husband as in a leadership role. Now, let's talk about that word submission. I feel like as time has gone on, but when you take it back a few years, possibly possibly about 2018 to 2019. The word submission has become dirty and it's been misinterpreted. And you have a lot of people throwing it around and using it incorrectly. And let's look at the Bible context. Submission means willingly yielding to another's authority or leadership, motivated by humility, respect, and desire to honor God. It's a voluntary act of putting the needs and desires of others above one's own, particularly in a relationship with the authority figures like husbands or church leaders. Voluntary and humble. Submission is not forced or coercion, but a conscious choice rooted in humility, the desire to honor God's ordained order, respect for authority. It involves respecting the authority, those who lead, whether in the family, church, civil government. Unity and teamwork. Submission is about working together as a team with each other person fulfilling their roles and contributing to the overall good of the group, i.e. the family. The husband is the head, the wife helps him. We both have our roles. We understand what we're doing. I respect you. I am submitting to you because I trust you. I trust God. I trust you, and I trust that you believe in God and you're looking to him, so I'm looking to you. It is love and service. It's an expression of love and putting the needs of others before your own, not a tool of oppression. And unfortunately, submission is often misconstrued as being subservient. So let's look up the definition of subservience. While both subservience and submission involve a degree of yielding to another's authority, they differ in their connotations. Subservience implies a more servile or compliant attitude, often lacking genuine willingness or even hidden resentment. Submission, on the other hand, can be a more willing and respectful yielding to a higher authority, whether it be a person or a principle or a system. Subservience, definition: being excessively obedient or submissive, often in a way that lacks genuine respect or even carries a hint of resentment. Characteristics: blind obedience without questioning or considering the reason behind instructions. A tendency to prioritize the needs and desires of others above one's own, potentially at the expense of personal well-being, may involve hiding feelings of frustration or anger due to the need to comply. Example: a person who is consistently puts the needs of their boss before their own, even when it leads to burnout, might be exhibiting subservience. So, with all that being said, I think we now understand why that word submission has taken a turn to the left and has been misconstrued. And a lot of it is because people are using it incorrectly. And oftentimes what happens with women, more so the modern woman, and in the modern woman, she has very much, depending on who raised her and what message and ideals she subscribes to, she views submission as subservient. And even the willingness to serve her husband or seemingly be beneath him, even though you have God, husband, wife, she looks at that as, oh, I'm beneath you. But that is an ego thing, seemingly a spirit of pride upon her, versus I trust God and I trust you. Now, we often find in this conversation, a lot of women would then say, and it's the ad hominem and the silent victimhood that, even though it's silent, comes out loudly, because they will then turn and say, well, why am I beneath him? Why am I not in charge? Do you want to be? Let's keep it a buck. Do you want to be in charge? Do you want to be in charge in the middle of the night when someone breaks into your home and has a gun? Or do you want your husband to be in charge? You know, we have these gender roles and all these roles have been put in place for a reason, because of the way we're being designed. God designed man for a purpose. He designed woman for a purpose. The beauty in those roles is, if you are truly connected to God and you understand your role as a wife, I know I'm not going into my husband's role, and he shouldn't be over here in mine. We all got our lanes. We should just stay within them. So let's look at the modern woman as a wife and what she believes. So modern wives generally embrace egalitarian partnerships. Now, egalitarian is both of us equally contribute ideas, decision making, money. What I often find when you watch, if you are on social media, and the best idea of this is when you watch these dating shows. If you've ever tuned into Kendra G and her dating Find Love, or if you tune into Pop the Balloon and Five in Love, or if you tune into Ashley Dalton, she's pretty good. You have these women or men, specifically women, who call into Kendra G, and they very much state they want a partner. I don't want a husband. I'm not looking to you. You're not my father. I want an egalitarian relationship. I want to be included in decision making. I want to have a say. We are equal, but they don't want to be equal when it comes to money. So they want to make decisions, but hey, when it comes to the 50-50 thing, you're going to pay all the bills. I'm going to keep my money. I'm going to find fun stuff for us to do with it. Typically doesn't happen. We're going to use it for trips and vacations. That is where they draw the line when it comes to equality. And it's funny because it very much is the, no, you want to have a say so, you want to do what you want to do, but when it comes to money, you don't want that responsibility. You want that to be on the man. So traditional wives, when we go back to the modern woman and the modern marriage, egalitarian, they share responsibility. They support each other's careers and personal growth. Traditional wives, on the other hand, often adhere to more traditional gender roles while focusing on homemaking and child rearing, while the husband is the primary breadwinner. So, modern wives, shared responsibilities. Modern marriages prioritize shared household duties, childcare, decision making, regardless of the gender. Career focused. Women are more likely to pursue careers and professional development, often alongside family life. Let's pause that right there. You hear a lot of these conversations and they take place, and even on TikTok, where they say, when you look at Black women, they're told, go to school, be independent, don't trust a man. You focus on your career, you focus on having your own, that way you don't never have to depend on nobody. Then you have the other groups, the other races, where for whatever reason they come out of college with a ring. They're engaged by their second, third year of college, and they focus more on prioritizing marriage, but somehow they're able to still graduate with a bachelor's degree and graduate with being engaged. And for some reason within our community and within our culture, we don't emphasize that. And when you hear a lot of Black women talk, it's the whole, well, you can't depend on nobody, you can't trust nobody. And that is often a sign of, you were raised in a home where there was a mom, there wasn't a man, and because your mother couldn't depend on your father, or she wasn't married to him, she is now telling you to never depend on a man. When we all know that's not true. And if you can't vet properly and pick a husband that can help share in those roles, that can help support you, and that you can depend on, that has nothing to do with marriage itself. That is a you and your mom and your grandma and all those people who just chose wrong. And it does happen. But to say, well, other races are able to do that because their men support them. Their men have jobs. Our men don't. That's not true at all. So again, let's round it back to career focus. And women are more likely to pursue careers and professional development alongside family life. Mutual support. Partners actively support each other's ambitions, personal growth, and happiness. Egalitarian relationships. Modern marriages aim to be based on mutual respect, equality, breaking the traditional power dynamics. So let's talk about that. Mutual respect and equality. Equality within a marriage. What is it that modern women are looking to be equal to? Why do you need to be equal to a man? What is it you feel you're missing out on? Because when I think about that idea, the equal to, it comes off very much like you don't feel, it's like your ego, like you feel insecure. If you've ever thought about a man, or you were raised with one, I grew up with a wonderful father, very loving and very strong and very masculine and very much in his role. And I grew up with a mom who knew her role. Now, my mother worked, my father worked. Household very traditional, but everybody worked. But my mother and father made decisions together, but my dad very much had the last say, and he considered my mother. And I think oftentimes when you aren't raised in a household with two parents and you're on the outside looking in and you see your mother making all the decisions, and the idea is that when you're raised in a household with a man, he has the last say, and it is very much fee, fi, fo, fum. He is the giant. When he says no, he says no. But it, again, it becomes the more subservient, the more he's in charge. And he is, but not from an abusive idea, more so from a perspective of, yes, my father is in charge. My father has the last say, but everything my father does is in love. And that's the key ingredient right there. It's the love. It's the, my father loves God. My father trusts God. My father has set these rules, and he has, has this foundation of how he wants this family to go, because he loves us and he wants the best for us. And safety is always first, and financial safety is what he's looking at. So if my father says, hey, y'all can't do XYZ, it's probably because there's a reason behind it, not because he is exercising his power. So when you hear these women talk about, I want to be equal, do you really want to be equal? What is it you are trying to do? Why do you feel less than? I guess is the question. What is the ego? And why do you feel like you are not included in this? And even more so, why are you with this man? If you don't trust him, if you don't feel that he considers you, and you're not looked at as, an important part of this relationship, why then are you with him? If you have to constantly feel like you are a part of this and I can make decisions too and I'm in charge, well, put your money where your mouth is. But a lot of women don't want to do that. They very much want to have a say so, but they're like, no, you pay. No, you do this. That's not how it goes. And it's ass backwards and it's asinine. So when we look at modern women and their goal to strive for career, there's nothing wrong with having a career, and there's nothing wrong with pursuing your purpose and being a mom at the same time. But what often happens is, I find that these egalitarian marriages or these modern marriages, this wife is now competing with her husband. She wants to make more than her husband. She wants to outdo her husband. She wants to feel important in the workplace. But being a young woman under 30, And before you have babies, you can do all the things in the world. And when I look back to being under 30, I had all my kids, all four of them. And then as time has gone on and I've been a working mom and now I'm in my 40s, I realized that what I could carry 35 and under, I can't carry now mentally, emotionally, or physically. I don't have the bandwidth for it. Our bodies weren't meant for that. We were meant to be more caring. We were meant to be more nurturers. Men are made to carry the load, which is why God designed them that way. But we've now found ourselves in competition mode with our husbands and wanting to feel important. And that has to do with the lack of who instilled ideals in you and who raised you. So if your parents did not raise you to be, I guess, confident in who you are as a woman, that's a you and them problem. Because my father raised me to be self-sufficient. It was, you do have to work. You do have to possibly have a career because you have to be able to take care of yourself. That's everyone. Everyone should be raised to be self-sufficient, and everyone should be raised to know how to cook and clean and take care of yourself. And that is just before you even get into the whole marriage thing. So I have to be able to take care of myself. I need to be able to pay my own bills prior to getting married. Because even when you do get married, if you are in more so of a traditional role, women often take on the responsibility of making sure things are paid, making sure, hey, we need a plumber. I'm going to call the plumber if I'm home. Now, I guess where this line gets a little bit blurred is because if we both work and we have a traditional marriage, but we both work and I am still in charge of the kids and I am still in charge of making sure things get done around the house, then what does my husband do? He goes to work and he pays the bills. Well, what else does he do? And it's easy to kind of look at that and say, wow, well, that's not fair. It looks like she is carrying the household load. But understanding that that isn't true and every relationship works differently. So in that household, maybe you're saying to him, hey, we need to call a plumber, and you know he's going to fork over the money to get it done. But in that same respect, you're not doing the plumbing. You're just making the call. If we're looking at the yard and it needs to be trimmed and taken care of and cleaned up, maybe your husband isn't out there every Saturday morning or every other Saturday mowing the lawn. Maybe he paid someone else to do it. If the households are both dual income and I'm the mom and I'm still doing all the things as a mom and taking care of that, and we have the money to, so I'm not cleaning every weekend. Maybe it's the house needs to be clean. We have a maid that comes once a week. So you find these things that happen and people come off or they make these wild assumptions and say, well, she's carrying everything. She works too. She has to take care of the kids. She has to take care of the household duties. That's not often true in every marriage. Now, for the wife that stays at home all day, for the wife that is a stay-at-home mom, what are you doing at home all day other than taking care of the kids? Because we know unless you have a small baby, at some point in time, they're going to go to sleep. So you clean up, you're doing things around the house. You are carrying the household duties. Why? Because you are at home. But a lot of people tend to look at that as feeling subservient. That's your role. You're home all day. If the roles are flipped and they're reversed and you leave the house and you go to work all day and he's home, which that is some couples, and you are bringing in the cash and he's taking care of the house, and you walk into a dirty home and food that is not made and kids are crying and everything's all over the place, plumber hasn't been called, the yard people haven't been called, and the house is trash, you're then looking at him like, what in the F have you been doing all day? And he's like, I'm sorry, I got overwhelmed. And overwhelmed with what? It's not that hard. So why can't you do it? And we expect, because, oh, they're men, they should be able to do it all. But when it's to us and we don't have to work and we don't have those things and we're at home all day and we're feeling offended, which tends to often happen because we're carrying everything, and it's, why do I then have to call the doctor for him? Why do I have to call the plumber? Why can't he do it? He's at work. That's why he can't do it. And you guys sat down, you got married, and you both mapped out a plan, which tends to happen. I don't know too many people who kind of wing it and just kind of, figure it out as it goes. That can be a disaster. And to anybody looking to be married and wanting to be married, it would be wise that the person you are vetting for marriage, both man and woman, you sit down and discuss what it is that you want, especially if I'm not a traditional woman. I don't want a traditional marriage and I don't want traditional things. I do want to work still after having a baby. I want us to share and all that. And there's nothing wrong with that, but you should state that. Most men don't want other people raising their children unless it's a relative, i.e., their mother, your mother, an aunt, a close family friend that they trust and kind of has the same ideals and concepts around life. Because when you leave your small child with someone, they're exposed to them and how they feel about things. They're listening to them. Seeds are being planted, whether you realize or not. So it is wise to sit down and map out a plan of, this is how this is going to go. With my marriage, even before my husband proposed to me, we talked a lot about the future. We talked a lot about our roles and who we were. And in the very beginning of the relationship, I made it very clear who I was, my thoughts, my beliefs, and who I was as a woman of God. I let my husband know that I am a traditional woman. I believe in traditional values. I believe in marriage, and I believe that God is in the center of the marriage. And he very much agreed and stated to me that he had the same beliefs. Now, along with that, we began planning, having conversations. How do you see a household? How do you see bills? And where do you see yourself as far as your role as a husband? How do I see myself, my role as far as a wife? And we very much talked lengthy about everyone's roles. And we discussed decision making. We discussed the girls and how that looks, especially with the ones that are under 18, and this future of them, and what we look like in a modern marriage, as far as, this is a modern family. This is not your traditional. I came in divorced with 4 daughters. He came in single, 2 children, never been married. So here we are in this modern relationship with these traditional views, traditional values. And the main thing that was stated, you're the husband, I'm going to be the wife. I will run everything by you. We will make decisions together, but you get the last say so. I'm okay with that. That is how I'm raised. I'm okay with that so much because I trust my husband. I know that he leans on God. So I trust God. I trust my husband. I understand that every decision that is made without my knowledge is for the betterment of our marriage and our family. I guess as time has gone on, established myself in him trusting me as far as raising the girls, even though he is their bonus dad. I'm raising them in such a way because that he is privy to all the decisions that are being made. He is financially taking care of us. He has a right to know everything that goes on. He has a right to know everything that is being discussed. So before I make a decision, I discuss with him in length about decisions and about things that are happening and what I think or how I feel. I get his input, and he then shares with me his thoughts, his ideas. Depending on the situation, depending on the subject, this can take a week or so. But the roundabout conversation is, because we are in modern times with traditional values, traditional beliefs, and then being, in a sense, a modernized family where you have now a step parent, and then you have an already made family, you enter the step parent, but you can still, in these roles, hold on to tradition. You can still have God at the center of it. So what we often find, or what I see and hear, knowing people who have a modern family, in a sense where you have one parent who's a step parent, one is the biological, you have the step kids, the biological kids, and we're together and we're all just trying to make it work. What we see on social media, what we may see with the people we know and love, is that it tends to be very much, these are my children, whether that be the father or the mother. This is my child. These are my children. These are the decisions I'm going to make. I'm just telling you because I'm just telling you. And whatever you say or feel, I really don't care, because these are my kids. And sometimes in those situations, there is another parent involved, that other biological parent, whether they have a active relationship with said children or not, that other parent is there somewhere looming. Now, what is interesting is the parents that are nowhere near the situation or relationship, where the other parent has completely broken ties from this family. They're not involved, but the parent who is actively now involved is the active caretaker, is the full-time parent, still now with this new wife or husband is acting like, hey, this is my kid. Yes, we're married, but this is my kid. I'm making all the decisions. Now, if I flip that back around, what you tend to see in social media world and on these dating shows or interviews, you have this individual who is saying, hey, these are my kids. You can't discipline them. You don't have a say so. You don't get to decide what takes place, but financially, you're in charge. Financially, I'm going to come to you. You're going to help me raise them. You're going to finance them. They need shoes, shelter, whatever. You're going to fork out the bill. That's not really fair. And you have now this whole, I guess, an uprising of men, especially, who don't want to be active stepfathers, who don't want to be stepfathers at all, because you have this group of women, of single mothers, that have never been married, that have chose poorly and have made babies with men who don't want to be involved at all. And then so they have this idea, and that these are my kids, and I don't want you disciplining them, and I don't want you telling them anything what to do, but you're going to take care of me and my kids, which is selfish in a way, because you'll take the money, you'll move them into your home, but if this child is acting up and stepping out of bounds, you're not allowing them to chastise them. And I don't mean physically put their hands on them, but correction is needed. And the Bible talks about correction. And you have to correct a child when they're wrong. But the audacity of anyone to bring in this outsider and want them to be a part of the family, and you want to utilize them financially, but then tell them, no, you don't get a say so in how they're being raised. You don't get a say so in correction. You don't get a say so in any decisions, but I do need your money. And with that money, I'm going to decide how this goes. And now you have a group of men who are saying, no, we're not dating single mothers. Now, are there some that will? Yes, because it just is what it is. You have firm men who are like, absolutely not. And you have some men that will. My stance on the dating the single mothers, I was a divorced mom, but I think that people with children should find people with children. I believe that if you are a single woman with children, you should only date men who have one children, two children, whatever the case is. If you've got 3 kids, you date somebody with 3 kids. I wouldn't, as a single woman, date a man with no kids, because that man should find a woman who has no kids. And I know what everybody's going to say. Oh, everybody has a baby now. That's not true. That's not true. There are more single mothers than there are single fathers. But at the same time, there are a lot of young ladies who do not have children, and there are a lot of young men who do not have children. So let's look at the stats of that. So I'm looking at this article. This is Visual Capitalistic Reports. In the US, Black women are more likely to be single mothers than Black men to be single fathers. Specifically, 47% of Black mothers are single mothers compared to 15% of Black single fathers. Now, one would then say, how does that even happen? Because you need a single father to be a single mother. You are absolutely right. For every single mother, there's a single father. Now, what we're not looking at is the fact that these same women are having babies by the same men. And there are more single mothers than there are Black fathers, because men aren't carrying the babies. The women are. So one man can impregnate 10 women in a week versus a woman getting pregnant 10 different times in a year. Like, you understand where I'm going with this? It cannot happen. So you have the one man, we all know them. Some of us do more than others. And he's impregnating 10 to 15 girls all within, a 6-month period of time. Now, this is not to bash Black men. You know how I feel. But we do have our one-offs. We do have some people who just are irresponsible. Does that mean that the Black woman is not responsible? Absolutely not. And I'm going to go with this. And here's a quote from Kevin Samuels. Marry before you carry. It just is what it is. Marry before you carry. One, that's not to say that divorce doesn't happen. I mean, hello, here I am. That's not to say that fathers aren't involved when, aren't going to be involved if they divorce. But when you are married and you have a child, and if the marriage doesn't work out for whatever reason, as a divorced woman with children, you're not considered a single mother. In an ideal situation, you have the father, who was the divorced husband, who is more than likely there on the weekends. So here is another statistic. This is CDC reports in 2013. The CDC's National Health Statistics Report found that Black fathers are more likely to be involved in activities like bathing, dressing, or changing their children, eating meals with them, and taking them to activities such as sports, etc., compared to white and Hispanic fathers. So research using data from the Fragile Families and Child Wellbeing Study showed that non-residential Black fathers, i.e. we're divorced or we weren't married, were more likely to spend time engaged in activities with their children compared to Hispanic and white fathers. So also, Pew Research Centers showed that Black fathers were more likely than white or Hispanic fathers to talk with their children about their day, share meals with them, and do homework, even though those fathers were not living in the household with them. Let's tie this in a bow. So here we are in modern times. You have traditional values, or you're very much a modern woman. You want an egalitarian marriage relationship. But how does that help you? Because now you have a lot of women who are young, and everything becomes a price tag. How many dates can you take me on? Can you send me money for lunch? We see these things on social media where men are hopping into women's DM and they're saying, what's your Cash App? Let me Cash App you money for lunch. And you have these young kids like mine who are privy to this stuff and they're looking at it, and you think that that is how life goes. It doesn't. all that says to me is you are putting your soul on sale for what, 40, 50, 60 bucks for a meal. And then you have these conversations where these women are like, oh, I order everything on the menu when I go out alone. Like I'm ordering this. Like, what? So a regular day on a Tuesday for lunch, you're eating a $70 meal? Like, what is happening? And then you're going out on dates and you're sitting across these men, and we all know about the famous "I don't eat at the Cheesecake Factory" skit that went left. And it was a skit, and it went super left because the girl wanted to go to Capitol Grill. She felt like she was too good to go to Cheesecake Factory. So what impression do you think you're leaving on a younger generation? And they are coming up in age, they're trying to date, especially if they come from a household where there aren't two parents. So there's no direction. And unfortunately, they're getting downloaded all their information from social media. And I find myself, and not in every situation, but I think most parents find themselves competing when it comes to social media. So it's me, my parenting versus TikTok versus Instagram Reels and the BS that is on there daily. And let's do this. Let's just say, oh, why are they watching it? Like, come on now, let's be real. Even if I took everybody's phone, they could find a way. They're going to be at school because somebody's going to have a phone. But more so having a conversation with your child and letting them know that, hey, your relationships and your time, that's not transactional. When you meet someone and you are getting ready to go out into the world and exploring relationships so that you can begin the journey to become a wife, your goal should be to vet. The purpose of this is to find people that understand you and understand your values, and you understand their values. And how does my background and your background, how does it mesh? Will we make a good couple? Do we have the same beliefs? Will we want to raise children? And are we going to raise kids the way we were raised? What does my household look like? My kids come from a divorced household. Now they're in a household with a step parent who is very loving and loves them very much and gives leadership and direction, versus someone who comes from another household and may not have that. At the end of the day, they're going to be entertaining the idea of marriage and what is it that they want from the opposite sex. What is it that they're trying to achieve? And when you have these social media skits and things on TikTok, and you have these women talking about, oh, you got to send me, a Chanel purse, or you have to send me money before you can even take me out. Like, so you're transactional, because that doesn't even make sense. If you need someone to buy you a meal, then you're not going at life okay. So you need to check in, go figure it out, and understand what it is that you are trying to do and achieve. Because if you're only going out to get free meals, it's pretty sad. And what does that say about you and your value? And I get it. We're all under 25 at some point. Everybody's young and kind of doesn't understand this. And realistically, if you are hoping for marriage one day, the goal should be to do it sooner rather than later. And what I often hear is women my age talking about, I should have waited later to get married. Or when I talk about my daughter who's 24, and I say, I think that marriage should happen between the ages of 23 and 27. You have other women saying, oh my God, that's too young. She needs to live life. Live life with what? And do what? What? She does not need to be in a cock carousel. Shout out to Kevin Samuels. Like, what are we doing here? Now, if the goal is not to be married and you don't want children or that whole thing, that's fine. Let's talk to the girls and talk about the young ladies that do. Oftentimes in Black culture, or even just this young modern way of thinking, you want to go out, you want to date all these people, you want to live your life, you want to take trips, you have this fantasy idea of how life is and what it is, all because people are just posting these optics and you think that that's real life when it truly isn't. So you have these young girls and their mothers, aunts, cousins, whomever are telling them like, oh, you're too young to get married. You're 23, you're 27, you're too young. And then they buy into that ideology that they are too young. When we know as women that geriatric pregnancy starts at about 34, 35, depending on how well you've treated your body, your DNA, your genes, and if you drink, smoke, or do drugs. We understand that. For those of us who have been teen moms, and i.e. me, and had a baby at 19, and then my last baby, I'm pregnant at 29, there is a significant difference in how my body felt from 19, being fresh and young, carrying a baby, to 29, carrying a baby, how I felt. You couldn't tell me my body wasn't being ripped apart on a day-to-day, and it's just my ligaments. And that's because the moment your body goes into reproductive and is preparing for a baby, not too young, don't get me wrong, this is not, the 1400s where women are getting married at 12 and having babies in, at 15 and 16, but right about 18 to 25 is, for your body's age, is probably the most ideal time to carry a child. Now, can women still carry babies at 35 and 40? Yes, my mother was 40 when she had me. She loves to say she was 38. She wasn't. Yes, you can. There are women who are even 50 carrying a baby. But I'm going to tell you something right now. At 43, what in the F would I look like getting pregnant? I am tired. My body hurts now. I have to talk myself into going to the gym, just getting up, and there are days I don't want to do anything. Now, I understand for the women who don't have kids and they want to be moms. I totally get it. You're 45, you want to be a mom. Lady, live your life, do your thing. This is for the young girls who have that time, that window. Prioritize marriage, ladies. And if you are a modern woman and you want to have an egalitarian relationship and you want to work and you want to pull the weight that your husband pulls, fine, live your life. But if nothing else, prioritize marriage, prioritize relationships. Don't use men for food dates. Be serious, be upfront. If you don't want anything serious, that is perfectly okay. State it from up front. Hey, I'm not looking for anything serious, and just be useful to the group and just be used. But for the young women who have more traditional values, who say, I do want a husband, I do want to raise my kids in a 2-parent household, I do want a marriage, I do want all the things that maybe I had growing up or maybe I didn't have, and I want to do it right. I want to carry before I marry. I don't want to bring a child into a broken household and it's just jacked up from the start. Listen, we know those households. You understand and you see the difference. And children, when they're being loved by both parents in the household, they have a more grounded sense of self. They have self-esteem. They understand that they are being loved by both parents, and they feel at you could just, they have an easiness about them when they have both parents in the household. I mean, I've seen Avi with myself and my siblings, but also too with my brothers and their kids. And then when I look at my children during the time of my divorce, it was interesting to see they look like they needed a hug. I guess is the best way I can put it. Now, those who are listening to this and you're in a broken household and you have kids out of wedlock, don't get yourself your panties in a bunch. It is what it is. I'm not saying that you can't love your children and make them feel fulfilled. I'm not saying that. But we all know, if you've come from a 2-parent household, or if you didn't, what that will look like for your kids. So if you had that, why wouldn't you give that to your kids? Or if you didn't have that, wouldn't you want to strive to do that? But it's not saying you can't. Children need love. And so if it happens to be that you're now in this modern family, and you're picking and vetting a man that is going to be good for you and your kid, and that man can show love, that is honestly the best thing if they cannot get it from their father. Now, to the young women who do want marriage and want families, but also still want to be working moms, that's okay too. But if you are more of a traditional woman and you don't want to have a modern household, so to speak, where you're competing with your husband in careers, I suggest you start now. Start looking at where you are at now. What are the things that you need to work on? Therapy. Therapy is wonderful, especially if you have the right therapist, you have a goal in mind. And therapy is not forever. This is not a forever thing. Therapy at the most should be 2-3 years at tops, because if you have a lot of trauma, you should be actively working with tools on that trauma and being a better person. That is the goal, to be a better person. And you don't want to get with anyone and ruin their life. You know, everybody doesn't have baggage. Everybody doesn't have trauma, but you know, some of us are flawed. And it's always wise to get a therapist if you need one, if you feel you should get one, and work on yourself. Now, with that, vet. If you don't have a father or a brother or an uncle in your life, do the serious things to vet these gentlemen that you are dating. The first things first, don't wait too long to get on a phone call with someone. Be very detailed in your questions, but don't act like you're sitting across from them and that you are, you know, interrogating them. Like, it's not an inquisition. Don't do that. But ask serious questions. I am probably going to get booed for this, and that's okay. Listen, coffee dates, coffee and ice cream dates are always best. A coffee date at Starbucks, meeting someone that, you know, maybe someone had the courage to come up to you, or if you met them through your DMs, or if it was an online dating experience, coffee dates are always good. And it can be, let's have a phone call, then, you know, maybe the next day, can we FaceTime? And then if that phone call and that FaceTime went well, immediately schedule a coffee date or an ice cream date. Or if you don't want to do that and you want to sit at the park and talk, that's fine. You don't always need to break bread. I think people forget and don't realize how spiritual a meal is. And you probably shouldn't be having a meal with everyone. Imagine you don't really vet the person before going out on the date. You get there, you show up to the date, and maybe you're not a mature person, and you find that talking in this soon-to-be meal after the waitress has taken everybody's order, you don't really like them. You didn't realize that they had a soft voice while they're talking to you, and you didn't realize that, I don't know, something's wrong with their eye. I don't know, whatever you can think of. Now you have to sit here and share this meal. Now, I know some of you greedy asses are like, I don't care, I'm here to eat the food. Okay, I'm different, and everybody isn't like that. Some people want to enjoy the meal and enjoy their company. But the best way to do that is to know the person first before that meal happens. Because then if you're at Starbucks and you're sitting and you're talking to one another and you're genuinely getting to know one another, you'll know within that first hour if you ever want to spend time with that person again. And then what it does for the young man is, or the mature gentleman that you're meeting with, what it does for them is, one, it saves time and money on their pocket. It costs him nothing to drive down to Starbucks to meet you and to buy you a $5, $6 drink, get himself the same drink or whatever, maybe have water, and you all to sit and chat. If you modern women want to be so modern, but at the same time, like, I ain't buying him nothing. I ain't going 50-50 on no meal. Like, what does he think this is? Go to Starbucks. So you do realize you're not the only girl this guy is talking to. He's talking to other women. So just make life easier on him. And who knows, you might win him over with that $5 Starbucks drink and just really getting to know him. And in that moment, in that 30-40 minutes of you all talking and getting to know one another and breaking the ice, he might find, like, wow, this girl's really cool, because one, you're showing up authentically you. That's not saying you can't get dressed up, because that is one of the things I hear about the Starbucks dates is, oh, I can't get dressed up and I can't look cute. Who said you can't? Who said you can't? But we all know you're going on a date. You should be wearing clothing, because what are you advertising? You can still put your makeup on, you can still look cute, a jeans and a top, a skirt and a top, or a cute little dress, and look nice and wear heels. Who cares? You could do whatever you want to do. But the goal is, once you sit in front of that person, if you're truly vetting for marriage and you're truly trying to be in a relationship and go the long haul with somebody, you shouldn't be having a meal before truly getting to know them. You break that ice, you ask questions, you understand if you and this person are on the same page, you get to know them, understand, and then in that moment you find out, oh, so and so doesn't like seafood, or he can't eat seafood, or he's severely allergic to pork, whatever the case may be, or you know what, he doesn't believe in God. I do. This is probably not going to work. Or you find out, wow, she has issues, and I'm sitting here and she's tripping, and we're only 15 minutes in. Oh, no, 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 no. This is not going to work. Everybody saved time and money, was 45 minutes. I think that is the best way to go about it if you're seriously vetting. Well, how does this all tie into the happy wife, happy life, happy wife, shitty life? Because now we're dating, we're being serious about vetting. I am a traditional woman looking for a traditional man, or I am a modern woman looking for a modern man, and how I want my future to go with this individual. So this can all go into play with the whole happy wife, happy life thing. Because if I am traditional and I understand we before me, it's more likely the household is going to be happy spouse, happy house. Now, unfortunately, modern women have this very much of a happy wife, happy life thing. We see it all the time. If I'm happy, he'll be happy, the world will be happy. Meanwhile, you're happy, he's effing miserable, but he won't say anything, because men tend to be very stoic. They're not emotional. Some of them are, but for the most part, they're not emotional, and they carry burdens. And unless they have a therapist, nobody knows that they're going through it. Maybe a best friend. And how it all ties into the happy wife, happy life notion is, the modern woman gets what she wants. I'm not going to be the only one up with this baby at night, and you're going to help me, but you're going to foot all the bills. This is getting shitty. This is not fun at all. And who is this broad? And I chose wrong, and I didn't vet well. So I think it's good to take a dive into that, and how it all sets itself up, and how it can all come crashing down when you build your house on sand as opposed to a strong foundation. So I want to thank you so much for listening to part 1 of Happy Wife, Happy Life, or Happy Wife, Shitty Life. I will be back with part 2, and we're going to take a deeper dive into this and just tie everything up in a bow, and I guess come to a mutual understanding and help you all figure out what is it that you want. Thank you for tuning in. Have a blessed day.